that women make to their families, to the community, to our country, and to focus also on the development of the women in our federation, indeed, throughout the world. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has always been in the forefront of promoting women, recognizing that over 50% of our households are headed by women, and in the majority of cases, they are single mothers. It was Labour who fought for the right to vote so that every man and woman can exercise their right to vote. One man, one vote, one woman, one vote. Before that time, only people with property and people with money could vote, and those were all men. And so the right to vote really brought the right for women in particular to vote, and that was done by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. It was Labour also who fought for and introduced comprehensive free secondary education to provide equal opportunities to girls and boys. Before its introduction, girls were at a disadvantage because there are a number of subjects they were not exposed to, not available to them, that was available to the boys. Things like chemistry and physics and so on. The girls were not able to do those subjects. So it was because of the introduction of free secondary comprehensive education that you have female doctors today. And so I don't think many of them really understand that, but thanks to the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, we're able to bring education equally. It's what you call gender equality. Come on, gender equality, right? And Ike, at the time, the opposition at the time vehemently opposed this move because they wanted to keep the country in that sort of socioeconomic class divisions that equal education would diffuse. They didn't want that. They wanted to keep their class structures. But Labour fought and forced open secondary school doors so that regardless of where you come from, even if your parents working in the cane field, it didn't matter. You were given that opportunity to advance. And today we see what has happened to that. That is what took many families out of poverty. That's the key to unlocking poverty. And so many of the people today, of our professionals and so on, that is why they are where they are today, thanks to Labour. It was Labour who did that, a policy of equal opportunity. It was Labour also who supported and promoted women in leadership. Ada Mae Edwards, in about 1978 or somewhere there, in the 70s for sure, under a Labour government. And this was pre-independence. That's also important to show you the foresight and progressive thinking of the Labour leaders at the time. Pre-independence, we had our first female speaker. And to put it in context, America said they had a landmark day in January 2007 when Nancy Pelosi became the first female speaker after 200 years of independence. And we had our first, actually, we had two female speakers before Nancy Pelosi became the speaker in the US. One pre-independence and one post-independence. So our tiny island was leading the way because of the progressive thinking of the Labour leaders of the day. And that continued, that push for women to be in politics continued in 1979 when Ermine Queally Evelyn became the first female candidate by competing in Nevis local elections, and then in 1980 she competed in the national elections. Although Ermine was not successful, I want to thank her today. Ermine, if you're listening to me, thank you for the courage that you had, for the pioneering spirit that you had to move forward, and that paved the way for those of us who followed her. So thanks to you, Ermine. And then we continued in 1980. We lost power, but we still thought that women needed to be there. And so we appointed Mrs. Eugenie Byron Kondo as a senator to the parliament. She was the first woman to be appointed as a senator in the parliament by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. And since that time, we have had two other female senators appointed. She was the second woman to be appointed to parliament after Ada Mae Edwards as a speaker. And then we had two other female senators appointed by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party in 1975, which was Ann Wigley and myself. And so up to 2015, the Labour Party was the only party who had appointed female senators to the parliament. We know that we also had Jacinth Henry Martin, who ran for office in 2000 and won successfully. She didn't get through on her second try in 2004. And she was the second female parliamentarian elected to parliament, Constance Mitchum being the first in 1984. So we can see that women were making progress in business, in leadership, in becoming homeowners. And over the past 3 years, what we have seen is an erosion of that progress. And so that is why I was really happy to see that the campaign theme for 2018 for International Women's Day, which is tomorrow, is Press for Progress. We need to press for progress because we have retrogressed over the last 3 years. In 3 years, I see business women struggling to survive. Can't pay the rent, can't pay the mortgages, can't even feed their families when I speak to them. A lot of them who are in the food business tell me, I'm cooking less. And at the end of the day, I still can't sell off the food because of the economic conditions that was brought about by this current government that makes it so difficult for these people to survive. And so their families are feeling the squeeze. And that is why I say I like the campaign theme, Press for Progress, because I want women to join all of us to stand up for our rights, to speak up, and to show up as we press for progress in several areas. We must join together as women with one voice to reverse the trend where women's rights are being eroded and more women are becoming the victims of violence, including murder, sexual assault, rapes, and, of course, the intrusion of their homes. And a lot of them, of course, are single parents. I recall the murder of Arlene Nisbet outside Value Mart on about the 31st of October 2016. I was myself inside Value Mart at the time and thought I was hearing something like fireworks. It turned out to be gunshots. And when I went out, I saw the young lady lying on the ground, and then when they actually came for and so on, she didn't survive. And I remember commenting at the time that this was a turning point for us in St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to violence against women, because to my memory, she was the first businesswoman that I could recall who was murdered in the line of her duty. I then called on the Ministry of Gender Affairs to initiate projects to help women to feel safe. Of course, to date, absolutely nothing has been done. And since then, we have had 28-year-old Muella Webb of Cotton Ground, who was shot and killed. That was on about the 17th of April 2017. You had 37-year-old Lydia Jacobs, who was gunned down just outside her home in Church Ground. And that was on the 2nd of June 2017. And then, the body of the missing 17-year-old Leanna Napoleon of Keys, that was found in a shallow grave at Oliviers Mountain on the 14th of June. And now, the start of March this year, 1 week ago or so, we have Naomi and Jamalia Sunshine Finch, who were... Really? Okay. Well, I missed that one. Sorry. Who were savagely slaughtered in Keys. I understand that there was another lady murdered in Nevis this year as well. I don't recall the name. But again, it's making the point that we are getting more and more women being victims of violent attacks, including murder. And so we have to ensure that we protect our women. But physical violence, EK, is not the only violence that's being perpetrated against our women. For the past 3 years, we have seen an unprecedented attack on women in this country. Women have been dismissed from their jobs. They have been sent home. They have been disrespected, demoted, sidelined. Their rights have been infringed and trampled on. And just to give you a taste of about 20 or so women, and this is just a short list. You had Sandra Davron, Vancelyn Williams, Larissa Shiverton, Judith Rollins Paul, Dahlia Saunders Livingston, Karen Phillip, Giselle Ramney, Kendris Norford, Greta Sinanan, Salima Garaden, Tamelia Deming, Cleopatra Roberts, Diana Williams Humphreys, Andrea Busu, Beulah Mills, Willis Vasquez, Astona Brown, Claudette Jenkins, Rosalind Hazel, and Kazni Phipps, and Camelita Henry, all of whom have been dismissed, sent home by this government. And we still have 2 highly qualified women, both at home now for over 2 years. Over 2 years they're at home, being paid to do nothing, just to frustrate them. We've seen how the nurses have been disrespected by the junior minister and called thieves with no apology. We've seen how the workers at the Labour Department, who are nearly all women, were disrespected by the Minister of Labour, who went into Parliament to accuse them of trying to embarrass the government. Didn't think they were sick in any way, even though they had put in their 6 certificates. He questioned the doctors who issued the 6 certificates. Some had 19% up to 45% mold in their systems. And I understand, Dr. Joe, maybe you could bear me out on this, that the standard in terms of health is 2%. So if the standard is 2% and people had 19%, 45%, yet you have the Minister of Labour going into the Parliament and disrespecting these women and accusing them of trying to embarrass the government. But these women had to undergo grave disrespect and maltreatment. And at one point, when 2 of them in particular asked to be transferred because of the health issues, they were told that no department wants them. No departments want them, and so they might have to send them home. But one of the workers had to go overseas who got seriously ill, and so it started to blow up in their face. And so they had to relocate them and move them out of the building. And to date, there's been no apology from Vance Amory. The indignities that the women have to suffer under this government is really too much for us to bear. Look at what happened to the maids, the cleaners, the cooks up at JNF, all women. And they're all at the lowest rung of the income ladder, who had their pay packets reduced. And then somebody goes up there, Timothy Harris' sister, to tell them that they were overpaid. They were overpaid all this time. Where's the hat? These people have their families to take care of, and already they're working for minimum wage. But they have the heart to go and take out the monies that they got from the holiday pays to tell them that they were being overpaid all along. The only people not overpaid is Matt Brantley with his 2 salaries, and all those ministers. They're not overpaid. And so you see that the gains made by our women have been severely eroded in the last 3 years. The WISE program, Women in Small Enterprises, that helped women in small and micro businesses such as trays and those women who sell drinks, who sell food, have small salons, that has been stopped. No more can they get any assistance from that program. And what about the PEP? They said they changed the PEP to STEP. What they've done, Ike, they've stepped out of all of the training programs. So now there's no training going on. And so the women are the worst off. Women were offered training under the PEP in early childhood education, so that some of them could have set up their own little daycare and try to do a little business out of it with training. They did training in hospitality, in nursing assistant, in event planning, in graphic designs. All of the training have stopped on the STEP, because what has happened is that we have stepped out of the training. We had women in construction, being trained in construction. All of that has been stopped. And so what is happening is that our women have taken a giant step backwards over the past 3 years. Our only female sport, netball, is practically going to the dogs. Little or no support. This is an avenue. Being a netballer myself, I could tell you, it's not just about the physical side, which is very good, but also about your total development. You learn so much in sports, and netball, we especially learned a lot about the development of women. Now, that is just nobody paying too much attention to that. They have no interest in that. So women's development, again, being retarded when the only women's sport gets little or no attention. I want to congratulate Mrs. Jennifer Nero on being appointed as the director of the first standalone T20 Women's World Cricket Tournament. Imagine, We had every opportunity in this country to bid to bring some of those matches here to St. Kitts and Nevis, especially as we had a Kittitian who is leading in terms of the organization of that tournament. And I know for a fact that the Cricket Association, the local Cricket Association, was very much interested in bidding, but of course, the government had absolutely no interest in it. And you know what is the theme of that tournament? Equality for women. Equality for women. So they're not really interested in any equality for women or promoting women's sports. You know, I recently saw a very nasty and vicious attack on a local female reporter here in St. Kitts. And I had to say to myself, this is what is happening under this government. Everything is going to dogs. Everything is in the toilet and in the pits. That's where we are. A vicious and nasty attack. This is not the first time that this has happened to women. This is the Team Unity machinery, Facebook machinery. Once they don't like what you say, they will just go out and attack you. And I've called on Timothy Harris and his government on more than one occasion to dissociate themselves from what these people are saying, because they claim that they're speaking on behalf of Team Unity. And that's never ever done so, because they're all part and parcel of it. And so I wonder what Wendy Phipps and Akila Nisbet, what are they saying now? Why are they so silent when you see the kind of vicious and very nasty attack that that woman had to go through? And she's not the only woman who had to go through that. I mean, in Parliament, I get personally viciously attacked by Timothy Harris all of the time. But again, no one defines me. And I am not going to go there with him. I am going to make sure that I continue to tackle the burning issues that probably burning him so much that all he had to do is to resort to personal attacks. So I leave him there at the foot of the cross. So I will continue to speak about the Lanny Davis matter, which he can't answer to up to now, where he say, deceive the country and say he not a cent, but yet you could see on the far side where his office of the Prime Minister paid Lanny Davis. So attack me again personally because I say that, and it's right there. I'm going to continue to bring out about the land for that swap, all the lands that they claim they're going to give to the people. This was one of the biggest thefts according to the throne speech coming from the GG. But no, silently, they're selling 500 acres over Cairn and 400 acres down in Sandy Point and haven't told the people a thing. The deception of this government, I will continue to speak out about it, and I would not be daunted. And so I just want all of the women out there to, not all of the men, because what are we without our men, right, Ike? That the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party will make an even greater investment in our women, because we realize that that is the only way that the country will be able to progress wholesomely. And so we will invest more in our women. We will press for progress in women's safety. We will press for progress in women's leadership. We will press for progress in closing the wage gap between men and women. And we'll press for progress in the empowerment of our girls and women. So I want you to join us to reverse this period of attack on our women and our families. Happy International Women's Day tomorrow when it comes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Marcel Liebert. And who's going to take the second?
Yes,
Dr.
I'll go.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Ike. And thank you for the remedy.
Another one, you know what?
We'll discuss it.
Yes.
All right, then. Off here.
Off here.
I just want to say good afternoon to all those who are listening by radio and internet. We really appreciate you joining us on Wednesday afternoons to be informed and to engage in discussion. First, let me start by extending condolences to the Finch family and the loss of two of their family members. I know the young ladies very well, especially the one that goes by the name of Hopi, because I'm the doctor for her grandfather, her step-grandfather. And every time I go to visit the house, she would be there. And so when I got a message and a picture of the young lady who would have lost her life I immediately recognized her and I visited the family. And I spoke to her stepfather. And you could see the hurt that he suffered. And this is not the first. Just recently in Keys, we lost another young lady, Miss Napoleon, through violence. And so the Keys community is really dealing with another tragedy. And I want to extend, of course, my support to the people of Keys, to the community of Keys, and especially to the family. But not only the family of the perpetrator is also hurting, and I also want to extend my support to them. Women in this country, I see, have been going through a lot. There are lots of rapes and attempted rapes. I know that because of my profession. Lots of women will come there and they will tell me, about their situations. Many of them are afraid to report to police. And I really want to say also that some of them have reported to me that sometimes their reporting to the police is not taken so seriously. I would just like the police to look into these matters. I get these complaints over and over because women would say things in a doctor's office that they would not repeat anywhere else. And so women in this country are under tremendous pressure. They are afraid. Up to this morning, I had a patient, and she told me that her granddaughter is working and sometimes she come home late. And she says she can't sleep. And she has asked her granddaughter, to give up the job because she's afraid that she might be raped or even harmed on her way home. Women are very frightened in this country. But it's not only through this type of violence, but our women folk is also the victim of a lot of victimization here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Victimization perpetrated by this present government. Many of them are being put in position that they should not be based on qualifications. Many of them are sent home and can't even earn a dollar to buy a bread. And others are denied the opportunity to continue to work. Women are being the brunt of this. And as the Honorable Marcella Liebert said previously, that a large number of households here in St. Kitts and Nevis are headed by single mothers. For example, in my constituency, I have a list of women who would have been affected by this government with respect to being victimized. One that I have here is Jane Martin, and I think I spoke of Jane Martin before. She's from Connery, and she works at school meals. Jane Martin, with 2 or 3 other women, applied to continue to work in school meals. She was the only one denied, mainly because they think that she's a Labour Party supporter. And Dr. Hodge, Vincent Hodge, who is the PS in education, are saying to Jane Martin, Mrs. Edmead of St. Peter's, and Miss Brown, who worked in the school meals, one at the center and 2 others at the St. Peter's Primary School, are being told about their age. But I don't think that Mr. Hodge is qualified to tell anybody that they cannot work because of age. I will just say that Mr. Hodge is receiving Social Security and government pension, and he's a PS. And I think the population can figure out the age of Mr. Hodge. Mr. Hodge is very aggressive. He does not treat women in a respectable manner, in my opinion. These women were totally disrespected by Mr. Hodge, who just recently came back from the United States to fill a high-powered position. I think that Mr. Hodge needs to take a close look at his actions, and he should know that he's being scrutinized. I know that he called himself in an official meeting, the HNIC, but I want to tell him that there is no HNIC here in St. Kitts and Nevis. If this is the attitude that he would have developed living in the United States of America, this is a negative attitude that we don't want here in our St. Kitts and Nevis. I've been getting a lot of complaints about him, and he continually sends single mothers and women in general away from the teaching or education ministry. The other thing is that there are other teachers who are being treated very badly by Mr. Hodge. For example, Avanel Martin, who was the head teacher of the St. Peter's Primary School, being pushed around in that ministry. Mr. Hodge again is responsible for this, and he needs to really look at his action, because really this is not appreciated. But apart from that, if we look at the other women, such as Shesdor Tyson, I think she was the first woman who was victimized by this government very quickly. On the change of the government, all sorts of people rushed up into her office. They even took up her personal stuff, took her shoes and so forth, thinking that she had something to hide. Victimized. Chamiska Douglas, who worked in the constituency empowerment with Larissa Shiverton. And then we go on, Tamilia Deming and Diana Williams in the National Bank. Two women who are head of household, have children, just totally pushed out. Miss Kasne Phipps from Keyon, just pushed out of tourism, just like that. A single mother, of course, again. Miss Giselle Romney, single mother, also affected. So when I look at all these women, many of whom are single mothers, and how they were treated by this government, not giving some of them the opportunity to earn a living. I asked the question, did Gender Affairs visit any of these women? I'm pretty sure that they have not. Have they listened to their concern? Have they tried to represent them and see how they can help them? They have not. Gender Affairs seems to be carrying out, colluding with the government in mistreating these women. I call on the Gender Affairs Department to stand up and to really give the representation to the women that they're supposed to give. Their action so far, we're just sending out a statement after the gruesome acts that took place. This is not enough. Women need true representation in this country, and I will call on the Gender Affairs to do such. Statements alone cannot do it. The Bible says faith without work is dead. That is what I recently heard, and I think that it can apply here. Words without action mean nothing to those who are affected. A country in which the woman folk is abused, misused, and treated all manner of ways is a country that cannot progress. When our women folk are treated with respect and their talents are welcomed to the fore and they're accepted into leadership and so forth, they bring a different perspective, and that perspective in many cases helps to advance the country and everybody on a whole. And so as we celebrate this month of the woman, I really want to extend my own support and respect, starting from my family, of course, and extending outward to all the women of the Federation, the region, and the world. Ike, let me move on to another issue, the issue of lands in this country. But before I go on, I want to read a part of it, a part of history with respect to the land for debt swap. Because I think that people ought to know that this government is now selling the land, as was echoed by my comrade, the Honorable Marcella Liebert. Listen to this. 11th October 2012. In a statement made on October 11, 2012 on Win FM, Honorable Sean K. Richards said the following. This is when they were in opposition. Listen to what he said. My heart is troubled by Dr. Denzel Douglas's selling of 1,200 acres of our beautiful Kittitian and Nivision land to his wealthy foreign friends. Totally misleading the public. No land was sold. Not a square inch was sold by Dr. Douglas or anyone else. He went on to say, this is our land. This is our patrimony. This is our birthright. This land should be used to help and uplift our people. It should be used for Kittitians and Nivisions to build the farms, homes, and businesses of their dreams. Instead of putting this land in the hands of our people, Denzel Douglas and his failed government are selling off our lands for generations to come. That is a quote. So here we see Sean K. Richards really criticizing the Labour administration and the leader and Prime Minister then, the Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas. But he didn't stop there. There was demonstration held on Wednesday, 31st October, by two members of the Operation Rescue organization. And their whole demonstration was based on the issue of land. Now, here one of the quotes, they said, now look at what is happening. One of Bratcher's successors has actually decided to sell the land to strangers. A totally opposite thing from what Bratcher intended and did. This is a shame, it's a disgrace, and I believe it is high treason. Listen this word. It is high treason against the people. Not 1 square inch was sold. But here members of the Operation Rescue were saying it was high treason against the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. High treason. Then on November 6, 2012, the Spirit, SPACs, and CPO, 3 Sandy Point groups announced they were holding an open-ear discussion where residents of that town and its immediate surroundings can hear their views on topical land for debt swap. 3 organizations. I want us to remember those 3 organizations because I think that they still exist today. They went on with many different things, press releases, and all sorts of things. This issue actually went to Keyon because I think that I know that there was a activity held in Keyon by the government to discuss the land for debt swap. In that meeting, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, and most people can remember, tried to run away with the microphone. He took the microphone by someone who stood up, who passed the microphone to him, and he tried to run away with the microphone. And his argument was that he was the parliamentary representative, but apart from that, he said that the government was selling land under the land for debt swap in his constituency, and not 1 square inch was sold. This is their history coming back to haunt them, Hike. He ended up even in their manifesto. In their manifesto, the whole situation with the land ended up. And they actually promised the people that they would ensure that the land. So this is what the manifesto said. Let me just read a small piece. The surrender of over 1,200 acres of prime land in the Sandy Point, Keyon, Lamberts, and large estates means that such lands will be out of reach from the common man who dreams of building houses, developing agriculture, and other development projects. The land for debt swap by the Douglas administration has basically reversed all of the efforts made by our first Premier, the Right Honorable Robert Bratcher, and our first Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Kennedy Simmons, in taking back our lands from the hands of our former colonial masters and paying for them respectively, so we the people can have a heritage and a legacy. This is what Team Unity promised. Repeal the Vesting of Certain Lands Act. The result will be that more lands will immediately become available for residential, agricultural, commercial and industrial development. And 2, reclaim La Valley Greens. I want to stress that. La Valley Greens for suburban housing and other people-centered development. Ike, as I wrap up this point, it is obvious that this government has put its foot in its mouth. It has sold the people's land at La Valley. Where are all the groups that had all these open-ear meetings? I'm calling on them genuinely to address the issue. Where is the Honorable Sean K. Richards in all of this? He's boasting last night at a town hall how he's bringing some development and the same La Valley land that he said is the patrimony of the people. This is what I call political hypocrisy. They have not come back to the people to explain why they are selling this land. They are selling the land. But we found out that they are selling the land and we are bringing it forward to the people. And that is what they don't want to happen, Ike. Sell the land down in Sandy Point that they say was the patrimony. Sean K. Richards in a cabinet that is responsible for that. And this is the same man who's started some petition and made song and dance and all kind of what I will call disturbances about the land. Eugene Hamilton went to a meeting, ran away with the mic, saying that he's protesting against selling the land. And over there in his constituency is one of the first places where land was sold under the land for debt swap. And he has not gone to the people of Keyon, who he said would be denied land under the land for debt swap, to explain to them why he is part of a cabinet that is selling the land to foreigners, as they call it. This is what you call political hypocrisy, and this issue of the land is a serious issue. Because this was not the plan that Labour had for the land, and it will be explained further, Ike. And I just want to wrap up by telling the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, your land is being sold like hot bread and butter on the market under the land for debt swap. This government fooled us, hoodwinked us. When no land was sold under Labour, they are selling the land very swiftly and quickly behind your back. It is time for them to go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Terence Drew. We'll now have Mr. Conress Maynard make his presentation. Welcome, sir. The Honorable Conress Maynard. My apologies.
Okay. That's okay. A pleasant good afternoon to you, Ike, and to the listeners to Freedom FM in St. Kitts Nevis and beyond. A special good afternoon, as always, to the constituents of constituency number 3. I want to first take this opportunity to congratulate the Antioch Baptist Church residents in the Hainesmith Village area of the village communities on their celebration of their 55th anniversary as a church, a Baptist church in St. Kitts and Nevis. Some 55 years ago, the founding member, the original pastor, William Connor, started the church with 20-odd members and grew the church to what it is today, being very prominent in the village community and beyond. This Sunday they will have some celebratory services and a whole slate of activities surrounding their celebration, and on behalf of the constituency and myself, we give them congratulations as they continue to plow in the vineyard of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. On a sadder note now, I want to also join my colleagues in expressing deep sympathies and condolences to the family and friends of the Finch sisters who were so brutally murdered last week. In particular, I want to send condolences to the Hanley family in my constituency in Shadwell, who are relatives of the two sisters that had their lives abruptly taken away from them. It is really a shocking experience to learn that not only were these two sisters murdered, but in the way in which they were savagely murdered. No one, whether a man or a woman, a child, an elder, should ever have to face death in the way that these sisters faced death. There is nothing I could imagine that they could have done to deserve such fate. Now, I am one who believes that we ought to respect women to the highest degree. I believe that the woman really is the center of our being. It is where life begins. It is where life is nurtured. And for one of the sexes in the human race to have that amount of power, I think it is incumbent upon us to respect the woman folk, as they are the fairer sex and need to be protected and cared for. It is becoming too often a situation now where it appears that our society and our men in particular have a lesser regard for women. Marcella, I think, went through a number of homicides relating to the death of women in our federation over just the last couple of months, couple of years. In Nevis, just a few days ago, we saw a video of a fight in the school of one of the high schools in Nevis, where a young lady was beaten by other young men in school. These things should never be happening. And we need to take a step back as a society, as leaders, as political leaders, to evaluate where we are going wrong, that our women folk must be subjected to this type of violence. And as we approach International Women's Day for 2018, I call upon the nation to reflect on what we must do as a matter of urgency to ensure that all men and women understand that it is not right to take advantage of someone, especially if they are a fairer sex to you or they are weaker than you are physically. And so I know that we have a long-standing tradition in the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party of promoting and supporting women. Every year at our national conference, we recognize a mother from every constituency. Marcella went through the number of accomplishments that have been achieved under the leadership of St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party as it pertains to the women folk in St. Kitts and Nevis. There is much work to be done, and I totally agree that the theme for this year's International Women's Day is more than appropriate in the press for progress. But this government does not seem to be willing to press for the progress for women. You have heard over the past couple of weeks about the accusations leveled in the Attorney General's chambers. The government seems unwilling or unable to deal with this. I am aware of women, more than one, who have come under sexual predatory behavior of someone in the Attorney General chambers. I am aware that sexual favors were suggested in order to get positive outcomes of their issues. I am calling on the Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Juicy Byron, to immediately fully investigate these claims, because I warn that if something is not done to bring the perpetrator to justice, it will lead to an embarrassment of the office of the Attorney General, to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, if what is reported is true, that the events that took place in the office are well documented. Something must be done if we are going to be serious about empowering and protecting our women. I want to just put a small plug in here, though, that the predatory behavior does not stop at just women in this government. Just today, and this is not the first or second time, a young man who wanted to see a particular minister of the most senior position, who could not get an appointment during working hours, but the minister asked him if he could come to meet him at 10 o'clock in the evening at his home. Just a few hours ago, a young man told me that a minister asked him to meet him at 10 o'clock in the evening to discuss his business. If there is a minister or a prime minister who is aggressive towards women anywhere in the world, we will call it out. I say as well that if a minister or a prime minister is aggressive and predatory to men, we should call it out. This is not an issue of sexual preferences, because everyone has the right to choose their own sexual preference. But you cannot use your office and your power and authority to sexually assault unsuspecting and unwitting members of the society, whether they are men or women. And not because you believe that you hold such a powerful position that you can get away with it. It is not right. And so, in light of what we are hearing about what is transpiring in the Attorney General's office and the many instances of crimes against women in our country, let us not lose sight that others, young men, young boys, are being targeted by ministers of this government. We in this society must stand up for what is right, regardless of how embarrassing it might be. Ike, I'm going to leave that there for now. I want to take just a brief moment again to plead on behalf of my constituency for a number of things. Just a few days ago, visiting a resident in Buckley's, I was inundated again with the horrible smell of the incinerator. They have to live through this every day. I know that under the Labour administration, there was a solution that was put in place. Something defected. And I do not believe since then that anything substantial has been done. It is not right for the people of Buckley's to be going through this all the time. There are 2 ministers of health, not even one. But I guess if a minister of health can say ambulance costs money, well, I guess a proper incinerator costs money too. But the residents are asking that something be done. I want to not go too long as we have our distinguished party leader here this afternoon to join in the issues discussion. But I just want to bring the attention of the public to some matters that are of grave national importance with respect to our electoral office. We see a very alarming trend relating to the activities of the electoral office. And the general public must become sensitized of these things. We are seeing that there is the non-publication of monthly revised register of voters. Every month, a revised list of voters should be published by a particular date according to legislation. This is very important because it will allow the general public and political parties to scrutinize that list to ensure that people have been duly registered and people who have registered have shown up on that list, or that people who are not to be registered have showed up on that list so that they can challenge those names. We see an apparent deliberate attempt to not publicize the revised list. Why is this? Is this a deliberate subversion of our democracy? Is it an attempt to manipulate the electoral system with what appears to be the push of this government to move into election mode? Why is the office using computers as the excuse as to why they can't publish lists, or for that matter, can't register people to vote, by saying that the computers are malfunctioning? What is that? There must be a system in place that anyone who shows up to be duly registered to vote must be able to do so. The office can sort out its computer issue down the road. This is alarming. And I urge the general public to pay keen attention to this, because this is where governments who are waning in popularity will try to manipulate things in order to win elections. I just wanted to bring that to the forefront, and we will continue to be vigilant with respect to electoral office matters. And finally, before I turn over to Dr. Douglas, I want to say Dr. Drew outlined in very great detail the issue surrounding the land for debt deal and the hypocrisy surrounding Timothy Harris, Eugene Hamilton, and Sean Richards et al. I remember, I sang about it in a calypso in 2012. Finished the song. I had a whole verse about the land for debt issue. These fellas railed so hard against this issue that it is unthinkable. 5 years later, they have not even gone 90 degrees or 80 degrees. A complete 180 degrees. And has gone back on everything they told the general public. And they are the ones who have done the exact thing that they were falsely accusing the former government of doing. But the point I want to make, because Dr. Drew went into the detail good, is that politicians like Timothy Harris, Eugene Hamilton, and Sean Richards, and others in this coalition make it very, very, very difficult for well-meaning political servants that we find in our St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party when we have to face the electorate. Because, Ike, after they made such strong pronouncements about things like the land for debt, to only go into office and do the exact opposite, what kind of confidence is that going to give the electorate in people coming to them who actually mean well? I keep giving the example of the young lady who had a boyfriend and he treated her bad. She tried again with a second boyfriend. He treated her bad. Third boyfriend, treated her bad. The fourth one came along. An angel from heaven telling her the same things, but this time he means it. What is she supposed to think? And so that is why it is going to be critical for people in this society to understand that Timothy Harris, Eugene Hamilton, Sean Richards, and the like are dangerous to our political system because they continue to abuse the willingness of people to believe in order to further their political agenda. And we have to say no to that. Because they have run a campaign and continue to run a government on pure deception. Everything is about how I can deceive the people to believe what I want them to believe and not what is the truth. I would leave it there for today.
Thank you so much, Honorable Congress Maynard. We'll now ask Dr. Douglas to make his presentation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Ike. And I'm very pleased to join my colleagues here of the Labour Party, St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, on this edition of Issues. And I want to thank, as before, management and the staff of this radio station and our listeners who are continuing to join with us every week, Wednesday, from around the entire world. We really want to thank you for being part of this. My colleagues have outlined a number of instances where the government of the day continues to perform true to form, in that there are a bunch of deceptive leaders who have taken over the reins of our government and country for their own personal benefit and the benefit of their families and friends. It's only recently that we are seeing and reading in the social media that there is an outcry from within the administration itself, when persons who are known supporters of the unity government of Timothy Harris are saying that they are being discriminated against because of certain contracts which are being awarded to persons close to the government and of which the Harris family is a member. Recently, we've heard of what appears to be a challenge and an observation to a security company that has been able to be awarded, or which has been awarded, I should say, specifically, no less than 10 contracts to perform security services when it would appear there had been no serious tender and there was no genuine bidding process pursued before the award of these security contracts. We continue to emphasize that the aim and ambition of this government is to do two things. One, to enrich itself and its members, the leaders of the leader of the government and the governing parties involved in this government, and also that of their close friends. And secondly, in the process of enriching themselves, they will climb on the backs of the projects and the programs which were initiated and some of them completed by the Labour administration. But they now, as the current government, engaged in the opening or the distribution, for example, of houses that were built, and they are taking praises for this. This bunch of guys, they do not have any ideas of their own to lead our country. They are bereft of ideas. And in the process of living off the ideas of the Labour administration, they are enriching themselves. Projects which were designed to advance the lives of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, they in turn are using these same projects to enrich themselves and push our people further and further into poverty and into hardships, making it difficult for our citizens who are hard-working to live decent lives and to help advance their own children through education and other means. This is a serious matter that has now come to the attention not only of those who are opposed to this government, but even those who are part of the government, including PAM supporters who are a part of the coalition. In fact, the major part of the coalition, the single major part of the coalition, but whose supporters, it would appear, are being left and dashed aside as one or two members of families advance themselves at the expense of others. This is a matter that I believe is going to lead to serious crisis in this government. It will create crisis in our country. It will continue to create instability in the government and in the country. Because recently I have been advised that after a serious outburst and an argument in the cabinet room, where one member in particular was challenging the Prime Minister for advancing himself and his friends. That is the Prime Minister's friends and himself and family. But in other instances, projects which would assist that particular individual in moving forward were being deliberately held back by the cabinet, by the Prime Minister, in order to make him look bad. As a result of that near physical fighting in the cabinet, it was eventually announced that as of that day, no member of the cabinet must come into the cabinet room with firearms. I want to repeat that. No member of the cabinet must come to cabinet meetings with firearms. In other words, it's only a matter of time that this is going to lead to violence in the cabinet, violence among the members of our government. Thus, as I said, putting our country into greater turmoil and instability, and will become, I believe, the laughing stock of the Caribbean region and the world. Members of the very government are finding it impossible to continue to exist with the ravenous nature of Dr. Harris and his cronies who are leading this government and, of course, their families. The second issue I want to touch on, which has been touched on by my colleagues, is the matter of the land that has been, it would appear, given away at the La Valley area, and it would appear sold in the case of Hermitage to some people who were being described by Harris and his group as persons not fit to own our land when Labour was in government. And if you were to look at the throne speech on May the 15th, 2015, the Governor General Deputy, who was then Governor General, who is now today, Governor General, Sir Tapley Seaton, he said that, and I quote, "This government will reverse the biggest theft of the future of our people. We will return the land back to the people where it belongs," making reference to the land which was assigned to the National Bank by the government and by the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in order to settle the high level of debt that the government had and the country had with the National Bank, the bank and its depositors. The Governor General himself said that in the throne speech on May the 15th, 2015. But today, instead of the land being given back to the people where it belongs, we have been told, it will now become owned by persons who, again, this government described as being unfit to own land here in St. Kitts and Nevis, because the land, they said, in May 2015 belonged to the people and it should not be given to any foreigners at all. Today, the lands of La Valley, over 300 acres, the lands in Hermitage, over 400 acres, have gone. No longer are they being held in trust for the people, as the Labour Party had in fact set it to be, and to be owned by our own people. When the SIDF was going to be the official agency through which the land would have been returned from the bank and thus available to our people for their own development. But it's not only the Governor General in his own speech. Look at the many instances, the many references to this land being returned to the people time and time again by Dr. Harris himself. Dr. Harris himself, if you would recall, when he was speaking at a press conference on the 9th day of April 2013, he said that he spoke out at great risk in my government when the land for debt swap was being debated in the parliament. He claimed that Douglas was taking over 8 square miles of land in St. Kitts and Nevis and making them available to his friends in Dubai and Iran and wherever else he has them, as you made reference to that a while ago. Because he is concerned about foreign interest in supremacy to the interest of the local ordinary people. Well, what is Harris's interest today? Is it because one of his brothers has become the broker in the transfer of the Hermitage and the La Valley lands to foreign people and will get large commissions worth millions of dollars? Why, all of a sudden, the foreign interest is now supreme to the interest of the local ordinary people? We should ask Harris that question time and time again. How come all of a sudden the foreign interest is now supreme to the interest of the local ordinary people in Sandy Point and in Keon and in Otleys and Lodge? How come all of a sudden it has been reversed? Because of the millions of dollars of commission that you all are getting as a result of this transaction with people's land? This is the question that has to be posed continuously as we hear time and time again that our land at La Valley has at last gone. And I believe that the Deputy Prime Minister, Sean Richard, should be ashamed of himself. Because more than on one occasion, he spoke out about the land being returned to the people. He convinced his young people in Sandy Point, those in particular who were of the organization called Spirit, the Sandy Pointers, inspiring real improvement throughout. Spirit, they call themselves. Fooled them into believing that he was so noble and righteous in seeking to get the lands at La Valley returned to them. But now, as the Deputy Prime Minister, you see him on the beach, barefooted in a suit and tie, and having the land signed away to the people who will come from foreign. The same foreign people he condemned time and time again. Fool the people of SPACS, the Sandy Point Agricultural Cooperative Society. I remember visiting with them with Minister Nigel Cartier, at that time Minister of Agriculture, having to answer their concerns and their questions as to whether they would lose their farms. We said no. The land was going to be preserved for you to grow food, for you to develop, for your children to have plain rights on them and have their homes. And today, the SPACS who were fooled by one of their own, Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards, today they are hanging their heads in shame and disdain, can't believe that their minister, their representative, has sold them out. Not even one word. It took the Labour administration over 3 weeks to bring this information to the people. And then they run down there on the beach in jacket and tie, barefooted, signing contracts to have those lands transferred to foreign concerns. This cannot continue. How much longer must our people bear this? How much longer must our people be fooled and ridiculed by the government leaders of the day? How many more can they hang their head in shame? How many more can hang their heads in shame, knowing that they were part of the almost weekly demonstrations with placards bearing, lands must remain in the hands of the people. But today, those who were carrying those placards are now hanging their heads in shame as their leaders have really given the lands to foreign concerns, whereas Labour always insisted that it will never go to foreign concerns. It will remain in the hands of the people because the SIDF was going to buy back those lands and ensure that it would be for the people's development. That is why I say today that this government is self-serving and self-seeking. The government is a joke. Even their manifesto, the Team Unity Manifesto, page 16 and 17 of their manifesto, spoke loudly and clearly as to what their intention would have been in government. They said the current Douglas Labour administration has committed countless insults and injuries against the people of St. Kitts and Nevis during its time in office. None of them was worse than the travesty of Labour's parliamentary decision in December 2012 to steal our hard-earned lands from the people of this country. This mismanagement of the public purse has resulted in us being unable to service our debt with the St. Kitts and Nevis Anguilla National Bank. And the government has decided to use over 1,200 acres and what they would do when they would have been given an opportunity. They said very clearly that they would reclaim La Valley Greens for suburban housing and other people-centered development. La Valley, which was there for a developmental purpose, said it, they would recapture it, they would reclaim it. But today, the same La Valley Greens, the same La Valley area, 3,300 acres of land are now being used for a hotel development. The same type of hotel development that Labour had envisaged for the people of Sandy Point. Nothing different. In fact, the very brand hotel name that is being used is one which we had entertained when Range Development first came to St. Kitts and wanted to do their development. We had a choice, 6 cents or the Park Hyatt. We told them, use the Park Hyatt first, because the Park Hyatt was better known throughout the world. It was going to advance St. Kitts tourism to the high level destination point that we wanted it to be. And after the Park Hyatt, then we can look at the 6 cents. Now the 6 cents is located at La Valley. The very same La Valley that they said must not be developed for tourism purposes, but must be developed for, they said, housing, suburban housing, and other people's centered development. This government is a crook. It's a crooked government. It's a deceptive government. The government needs to go, and it needs to go fast. I am hoping that it goes before they pull their revolvers and their firearms at each other in our cabinet room here in Bastille, St. Kitts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas. It's a quite interesting development there. It's 5 after 3. If you wish to join the conversation, you may do so by calling us. The telephone lines are open, 465-6474, 465-0546, 662-1065. And you can put a question to the panel. They are here and ready and willing to have a conversation with you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's take this first call. Caller, you're on. Welcome.
Ike.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Grace.
Good afternoon. Ike, it's interesting to listen to Douglas and these guys speaking about the land. It's interesting to listen to them speaking about women affairs. I'm made to understand that Team Unity is having a women match tomorrow. That is so. Anyone on the panel know about that?
BPW.
Hello?
Business and Professional Women, BPW.
Okay. Well, I hope tomorrow when that match goes on, Marcella, you guys need to get some women to hold their placard asking Juicy Byron to look into the sexual assault, whatever happened in government headquarters. You also heard about what happened to the lady who worked at Win FM. The assault, what was put on her. The reporter lady for Win FM, what they said about her on Facebook. I hope tomorrow you all can have some people with their placard. Because these people, the world need to hear them. The world need to get the truth. And Ike, the world obviously have to hear the truth. It's time enough, man. People stand up to these people. People had enough. I mean, listen to Lindsey Grant. Listen to the same Grant. Listen to them.
That this government has now put beyond no reach. And the way you take back the land is by voting Team Unity come February.
Ike, that is not me. That's Lindsey Grant. These guys need to be arrested. They need to tell us. We need to stand up, Ike. I went to town yesterday, Ike, with a placard. And you know what's so lucky, Ike? That lady, what her name is? The cabinet secretary. What her name is, Ike?
Miss Huggins.
The cabinet secretary for Timothy. I don't remember her name. Miss Huggins. She came and spoke to me yesterday. And I get the message across. She stopped and talked about, I wouldn't say what we talk about, but the message went across. We need to start to stand up for the people because they're listening. Don't think they're listening. They're playing tough, but we are playing too soft. We need to get our message, and our message coming across people. We're talking too much. Let's start to play the tapes. Let the world hear these people. You guys have a good day.
Have a good day yourself. Thank you so much for your call. Once again, telephone lines are open, so please feel free to call us now. We have a very short window in which to accept your telephone calls, so please call us now and share your views or put a question to the panel who are here this afternoon with us. Let's take this next call. Call here.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
You're welcome. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, all due respect, right? I mean, I know y'all did a lot for women, but just remember that the High Commissioner Hughes was the first ever woman in St. Kitts to get a cabinet decision. Nobody talked about her. And I think she needs to be recognized because for a woman to reach that far in the High Commission of a police force is one of the most achievement a woman could ever have in St. Kitts. Even bigger than the Speaker of the House to me, because she controls the country. And not control the country, she makes sure the country is running good.
All right, thank you so much for your call. Let's take another one quickly. Call Aaron. Go ahead, please.
Greeting to you, Ike.
Bless my lord.
The comrades in India. This is Mr. Douglas. Greeting to him. I want me to tell the excellent leader and a rebel, Mr. Douglas, whenever you go back in there, took back all them land from them. Because it's you gonna run things. And you got the power to take back all them lands from the foreigners them. Don't go in there and be kind-hearted and sorry for them no more. Because I know that to look sorry for people. And done with it. Done with that kind of foolishness about sorry for people. Go back and take all them land from them and let them go where they're going. Greetings.
All right, bless. We got a question on the line.
Thanks.
Someone is asking if the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can take the government to court. If not, we need to start protesting vigorously so they can get out of here. That's the gist of it. All right, Dr. Douglas, you have to leave shortly, so I'll give you some more time to touch on some of the issues.
I want to thank you, Ike, for giving me this opportunity, because I want to leave really with some food for thought. Today is my eldest sister's birthday, and I want to use this opportunity, Althea Myrtle Fowler, to commend her on what would be celebrated tomorrow as International Women's Day and today for her birthday. I say that because this is the lady who was like my mother, even when she was a child. My mother having died early, Mr. Elms, our headmaster then in St. Paul's Primary School, allowed her to take me to school, sit on her lap while she did her schoolwork. And if it was not, I believe, for that and her caring, I probably would not have been here today. And so I want to salute her on this special day, her birthday, and in the dawning of International Women's Day 2018. So this morning I was sent this by one of my sisters. As I said, food for thought. It says, be able to discern your Judas from your Peter. Peter had a bad day. Judas had a bad heart. Peter, you restore. Judas, you release. I want to say that the Labour Party, in moving forward, is at the point of restoration. Those who are really of ill will against the people, they, I'm sure, are releasing themselves. But those who, as I said, may have had a bad day, were fooled by Dr. Harris and his group. may have had a bad day, but we would want to restore them. I speak of those who have left us and who are willing to come back. I invite them back. My friends of the past who are now yearning to come back, please come back and be restored to your family of labor. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Douglas. Definitely some food for thought. Peter had a bad day, but Judas had a bad heart. Release Judas, restore Peter.
Also, may I, just before I leave, make a very strong appeal again for those who know the whereabouts of our young Christian Fleming of Newton Ground. Please say something to us. If you are holding him for God's sake, please release him. Preston has a family. They are at this time in great agony. It's over 1 full week. They have not heard from him or seen him. Anyone who has information, please, for God's sake, bring it to the attention of the family or to the police. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Douglas. Gentlemen, lady, your final comments?
Thank you very much, EK. I think we had a very enlightening session of issues today, given the revelations of what is transpiring in the heart of the decision-making process of our country. I just want to take this opportunity to wish all women a happy International Women's Day, and to continue to press for progress in whichever arena of life you exist, whether it is at your workplace, whether it is in government, whether it is in sports, politics. Press for progress, I think, is very apt. I also want to again send condolences to the family of the Finch sisters. This has really shaken the core of the country, and we hope and pray that the perpetrator will be brought to the justice that is deserved. I will leave it there for today. Ike, all the best until next week.
Thank you so much, Honorable Congress Maynard. And Dr. Drew, your final comments.
Thanks again. I want to thank all those who called in and participated by listening. Let me say that the land issue, as we pointed out here today, is a very, very serious issue. We will not just sit by and watch our land be sold. I want to put the Honorable Eugene Hamilton on notice that you are part of a cabinet that is selling off the land in constituency number 8. We are aware of it, and we wouldn't stand by anymore and watch that be done. You said you would do different, and you have done the complete opposite. You have deceived the people. The Honorable Eugene Hamilton, you are participating in selling the land. Also, Ike, tomorrow I'll be on KISS FM from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on my show that is called Conversation with Dr. Drew. We'll discuss a number of pertinent health issues. Tomorrow I'll have Dr. Patrick Martin, and we'll be discussing violence as it pertains to our health and well-being. That's tomorrow on KISS FM from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And lastly, to all women here in the Federation and around the world, happy International Women's Day. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Drew. And the final comments from the Honorable Marcella Library.
On 2 issues. On the land issue, I think one of the things we need to stress is this sale of the lands was being done without anything being said to the people of the Federation by the government. it is only because, on this show I broke about a couple of weeks ago that you were hearing for the first time that lands were being sold at La Valley. They were already sold. And so only because we have come out and speak out about and speak out about it, that's why you're hearing all this talk about, they're going to build a hotel, they're going to this, they're going to that. But that's not what they told the people. As a matter of fact, Timothy Harris said he left Labour because Labour was going to take this land, the patrimony of the people, and give it out to foreigners. So, how can we tolerate such downright hypocrisy? I want to ask a question. I've been told that the St. Kitts debaters did not participate in the Leeward Islands debate. I would like somebody really to explain to us, how is it that we had no participation? Nevis went, and Nevis won. Congrats to them. How is it that St. Kitts had no participation in this Leeward Islands debate in Anguilla? We would really like to hear the explanation. The Irish Town Primary School had its presentation of awards and medals this morning at Assembly from Sports Day on Friday. So I want to congratulate all of the winners, all the athletes, the principal and staff, the support staff, Coach Gaskin, who worked very hard, the parents and guardians, and all those from the community who contributed in any way to the success of the Sports Day. I want to especially thank Seymour Williams of Island Auto Supply, who for over 10 years, he has sponsored the medals and trophies for Irish Town Sports. Thank you, Seymour. The school and the community really appreciate your continued contribution to the sporting development of our young people. I want to congratulate the Antioch Baptist Church on their 55th anniversary, so to Pastor Connor and all of the management of the Antioch Baptist. We appreciate all of the work you do in promoting the spiritual side of things, and so we want to congratulate you on your 55th anniversary this year. And finally, I want to call on women to come out tomorrow and support the march to stop violence against women, which is being led by the business and professional women. It begins at midday at St. George's Anglican Church and ends at Independence Square. It's going to be held between 12 and 1. Wear your purple. Purple is the color of for stopping violence against women. So wear your purple, come out midday tomorrow, St. George's Anglican Church, and support the march against violence. The march against violence for women, led by the Business and Professional Women's Association. Thank you, Ike. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Honorable Marcel Labrador. Enjoy the rest of your day as well. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon on Issues. Issues is brought to you by the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union and Digicel. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for a special edition of Issues as we celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you so much. Goodbye for now.
Wow! Some exciting things going on at the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union Limited. First, let me tell you about the work study loan, where you learn while you earn. You can borrow up to $25,000, and that goes towards your tuition, books, exams, and a desktop or laptop purchase. Use the work study loan to get your degree from an accredited college and just pay monthly, knowing your tuition is already covered. Then, let me tell you about the Easy Drive loan. Now you can get your fresh wheels with quick and easy approval, and you can get up to 8 years to pay it back. No, I did not stutter. Up to 8 years. Call 465-2272, 465-9014 for more information, or visit stkittscreditunion.com. St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union Limited, the best place to save, the best place to borrow.
Freedom FM 106.5.
Well, this is Vibe Scott, and I have a message for the school youth.